Welcome back. Just to remind you where we left off, we were left off with how a bill gets introduced. And again, just to refresh our memory, it is anyone can come up with an idea, only members of Congress can officially propose the idea in a bill form. So I just want to go back through. We've talked a lot about this, and we talked about the difference between political parties and interest groups. And I just want to make sure we remember the difference between them because they are going to play a role in the political process. So when we talked about interest groups, we talked about that their primary responsibility is to try to put pressure on members of Congress to create legislation that benefits their group. And we've talked about how interest groups work from the outside. So these arrows, if this is symbolizing government, these arrows are actually trying to put pressure on the people in that picture on their particular issue that they have created their whole organization around. So when we look at Second Amendment, women's rights, taxes, environment, diversity, equity, inclusion, these are all policy focus areas. And somebody who's working in an interest group for women's rights, they may have concerns about these other issues, but the focus of their group and the focus of the persuasion on Congress is around their particular topic. Now, when we talked about this earlier, we said interest groups will endorse candidates. They do not have them. So the Second Amendment, when we look at the ballot in who's running for office, we don't see somebody running for office and behind their name it says National Rifle Association, okay, or the Sierra Club. Okay, we see Democrats and Republicans because these groups then will say, the teachers union always says these are the candidates we're endorsing because they come closest to meeting our group's needs. They may work with a member of Congress to actually write the bill and make sure the language is correct, but you would never see the League of Women Voters name on a bill as the author. And testifying at hearings, we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Then we look at the political party side, we see that these are actually the people that are around the table. They are the ones who are inside government who seek to actually write, pass, and enforce the legislation. The parties want their members elected. Okay, the Republicans want their parties elected because they can control the House, the Senate, the presidency. They will have a wide focus. This is the one where we, let me see if I can do this here, where we said political parties know multiple topics and they know them just a little bit, but we said interest groups are the ones that know one topic and they know it in depth. So I'm hoping I can get out of this here. I don't know how to get out. All right, exit drawing. Oh, there it is. All right, so moving on. Now, bill is drafted. Okay, we've got members of Congress here writing the bill down. And again, it is only members of Congress that can author these. So they may be informed, they may be helped by, but the interest group will not have their name on the bill. Whatever member of Congress, whether it's the House or the Senate, the primary writer is known as the sponsor. If there are additional members of Congress who are supporting the bill right from its proposal stage, their names may go on there as co-sponsors. So it is not uncommon to see a bill proposed in Congress with 20 members because there are 20 members who are already supporting the idea before it even gets officially proposed. So once it's been written, and Congress or the Senate a senator has written it, they're going to give it to a clerk in the Senate who is going to enter the information officially into the congressional record, which becomes part of the Congressional Library of Congress, but the bill is then given a number and it starts with S. I don't think I need to explain why. In the House, there's an old tradition. There is a big wooden box where, because there were so many members and the clerk didn't have the ability to process all of them as quickly as maybe need be, there was an old tradition where they put their bills, their proposed bills, into this wooden box, and the clerk would then process them. That is still held true. So what happens is the members of the House put it in this beautiful wood box, then the clerk takes them out and they give them a number which starts with HR. Okay. So if we look at this holy moly intense graphic, we are literally where the red is right now. Okay, so if it's in the House of Representatives, it's given a number and it continues on. If it's in the Senate, same process. Let me see if I can get that out of the way. Same process. Okay, so the only difference, and I need you guys to remember this. Oh, please remember this. The only bill that has to start in the House of Representatives is tax bills. Okay, so that is the only one that would be required to start in a specific location. Otherwise, every other topic can be originating in either chamber. Okay, so the next thing that happens is the bill is sent to a committee. This is an insane process. Okay, the first thing I want you to know is this is where Congress works. This is where members of Congress, House or Senate, they bring an expertise with them for whatever they did prior to becoming a member of Congress. They look at what are their state's primary needs or their district's primary needs, and they try to get on committees so that their influence can be greater on a topic that's important to their district. In the House and in the Senate, each chamber has its own set of committees, policy focused, and we'll talk about these in a second here. Each committee is divided into smaller groups so that even more precise focus can be placed on a proposed bill. Okay, so I'm going to ask the sub right now to pause the video and show this particular video. It's a bizarre little video, but it is a fun little video to explain why committees are so important in Congress. So let's take a peek. In the House, these are the list of what we refer to as standing committees. These are permanent, topic-based committees that are going to examine bills, okay? The second side, the right side, are the ones in the Senate, and we can see there's crossover. Agriculture, appropriations, armed service. We see that there are similarities and there's reasons for that. Now, in the House and in the Senate, they have what are called power committees, or these are the big ones, okay? Committees are assigned by a number of factors, but one of them is seniority. And these are committees that everybody wants to get their hands in because they really play a big role in our federal government. So the first one's appropriations. We've already talked about appropriations when we talked about the congressional districts. How many representatives does a state get? And we appropriate out the 435. Well, if we talked about appropriations, that is dealing with our budget, with our money. Where does the money go? So it would make sense that one of the power committees in the House is an appropriations committee. Another one is the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee oversees what happens in the House when a bill has come out of a committee and how it's going to be handled on the House floor as far as debate amending and voting goes. So to be on that committee, you have a little bit of power in determining how the House operates once they're determining if a bill passes or not. And the third power committee in the House is the Ways and Means. Now, Ways and Means is not here in the Senate. You won't find it here. It's only in the House because there's a special power the House has that the Senate doesn't. And I'm hoping, me giving that little bit, you guys remember what that is. The Ways and Means Committee is our tax committee. Okay, and because the House has to start all tax bills, they have this special committee that is literally designated to work on tax legislation. Now, will it go over to the Senate to get approved by the Senate? Absolutely. But because this is where all tax bills originate, they actually have a committee that deals just with the formation of taxes and revenue. Okay, so the same thing in the Senate. They have what we would consider two power committees. Appropriations, odd, of course. And I want you to get this into your notes. Appropriations is also known as, quote unquote, the power of the purse. Congress controls the checkbook. They determine where the money of the federal government gets distributed to. So it only makes sense that two of the power committees in Congress are the House Appropriation and the Senate Appropriation. And the other one is the judiciary. The judiciary in the Senate is very powerful, whereas in the House, it's really not. In the Senate Judiciary Committee, whenever there is a nomination for a federal judge, it has to go through the Judiciary Committee. Okay, so you see that there are a number of power committees in the House and the Senate. Now, if we look at Ways and Means, and I talked about how we have subcommittees, let's just take a look at Ways and Means, or excuse me, nope, this is Agriculture, I lied. The Agriculture Committee in the House is actually broken into subcommittees because saying agriculture could mean a whole bunch of different things. And so they actually will break this down into smaller committees to focus on agriculture even more specifically than just a general topic. Ratio, how many members are on each committee, is determined by the House and the Senate, but you will notice that whatever party holds the majority in that chamber will also hold the majority in each of the committees. So in this particular committee, the Republicans hold the majority, therefore they have the most members. The Democrats hold the minority, they will have less. So there's 29 Republicans to 25 Democrats. It is just how it works, and it works when the Democrats are in control. Then they will have more members and the Republicans will have less. In committees, the person who is the head of the committee, who is running the show, so to say, is known as the chair, and the chair is always from the majority party. The minority party also has a leader in all of these committees and subcommittees, but they are not known as the chair. They are referred to as the ranking member. So if you ever hear of a member of Congress and they're referring to them as a ranking member, it'll tell you a couple of things. Number one, it'll tell you which party is the minority, and it will tell you that this person is representing the party as the leader of the minority group in that particular committee. I know it's confusing, and even is confusing for me to talk about, but we just have to remember a couple of these terms. Now, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to pick up the next video on once it gets to Congress. We've already covered this. What is the responsibility of these small groups throughout Congress?